With heavy equipment, they've broken the concrete slab. Currently, an excavator's at work behind the house. The hole is almost 8 feet deep. Any minute now, the police will unearth the most crucial evidence in the case of Abraham Shakespeare, a charming casual laborer who'd won a lottery jackpot. He's gone missing. The investigators had way too many leads on Abraham's whereabouts, yet they focused on one particular suspect instead. But solid evidence was lacking, till this very day. There's a bizarre beginning to this story and an equally bizarre ending. Each twist of events makes you want to say, "What? You must be kidding me, right?" At least, that's how we felt while making this video. Nevertheless, it all happened in real life, just recently, in Florida. This is Abraham Shakespeare. His surname, too, seems to be a bizarre coincidence. Let's see. Abraham grew up in Lakeland, Florida. Despite finishing full 7 grades, he could never read or write properly because of a learning disability, so Abraham Shakespeare was virtually illiterate. School seemed meaningless to him, and so he went to work in orange gardens along with his father. Still a teen, he got himself into trouble and spent 5 years for theft in a juvenile reform school. Nevertheless, Abraham found joy in labor, taking the jobs of a dishwasher and a sanitation worker. He had a habit of picking up coins from the ground, and he kept doing it even after he won the lottery. "This makes dollars, man," Abraham would say. On November 15th, 2006, Mr. Shakespeare scored it big time. He was a truck driver's assistant then. He and his colleague stopped at a Town Star store in Frostproof, Florida. The driver went in to get something to drink while Abraham stayed in the truck. He'd given the co-worker $2 and asked to buy 2 Florida Lotto tickets instead of soda. And one of those tickets turned out to be the lucky one. Abraham Shakespeare hit a jackpot. Was it really good luck, or was it fate testing him? There he is, with a gigantic $30 million check. In fact, Abraham received a lot less. He could get the full amount in the course of several years, or a smaller sum, but right away. Shakespeare chose to get the money at once, and all taxes paid, he became the owner of $12.7 million. First off, Abraham dealt with the child support and set up a trust for his son. For himself, he bought a house and a car. Then he took to funding the needs of his family and friends. Seems it was the only joy his wealth could bring him. Soon, Abraham was paying down mortgages and funeral costs for total strangers, and the strangers gladly took advantage of his generosity. Finally, Abraham got tired of it. Samuel Jones, a childhood friend of Mr. Shakespeare's, said he really didn't understand it at all. It was moving so fast. It changed his life in a bad way. He said Abraham would tell him, "I thought all these people were my friends, but then I realized all they want is just money." The last time Shakespeare's family spoke to him in person was in April of 2009. On the one hand, there was no reason to worry yet. Maybe he got tired of people constantly pressing him for money, and so he bought a house by the ocean and just blocked out the world. But on the other hand, the family started getting text messages. In August, Abraham's mother was given a postcard signed by her son. Her nephew, Cedric Edom, brought it in. With the postcard came $100 and a cross. Mr. Shakespeare never wrote or texted his relatives. He only called because of his troubles with spelling. So what was going on with Abraham? Who was sending those letters, really? When Shakespeare hit the jackpot, he was 40, and he was separated from his partner, with whom he had a son, Moses. Abraham loved his child a lot and visited often. Sometimes after the jackpot, his youngest son, Jeremiah, was born. Abraham had him with another woman, although the couple were separated too. In 2008, Shakespeare's realtor visited a business conference. There he met Dorice Moore, or Dee Dee for short. The charismatic woman with dyed blonde hair rolled in a wheelchair. She introduced herself as a writer who'd just been in a car accident, and she expressed great interest in Mr. Shakespeare. That was an exceptional case. Moore wanted to write a book about it. Soon, she came to meet Abraham on her own 2 feet, and on high heels. This woman never wrote a single book in her 34 years. In the past, she was a nursing assistant. She got a teenage son. After ending a long marriage, she began dating a man much younger than her. And Dorice has a very peculiar relationship with the law. Once Dee Dee Moore quit her nursing job at a healthcare company, she opened its branch in Plant City, Florida. With time, her colleagues noticed that Dorice was spending the company's money on personal purposes, and they reported it to the police. But before the detectives visited Moore's office, it had burned down, along with all the documents. Arson was never proved. Hence, the company made a deal with Moore. The woman had to partially compensate for the damage, and the company would drop the charges. But instead of paying, Dorice resorted to blackmail. She threatened to tell the press that the company was intentionally, quote, employing persons with AIDS, knew the person had AIDS, and still utilized them for outside sources. They let her be. In 2001, Moore applied her acting skills once again. Near a road in Waimama, a passerby saw a woman struggling in the ditch with her hands tied and helped her get to the police. The lady reported she'd been tied up by 3 Hispanic men, who then took her car. But the officers found it in her friend's garage. It turns out that Moore's car payments were long overdue, so she asked her acquaintance to hide the vehicle. More than that, Dorice tied her own hands and jumped into the ditch of her own free will. She was arrested for a false crime report and sentenced to 1 year of probation. Dee Dee clicked the path to Abraham on her high heels when the man was extremely exhausted and depressed. As it turned out, though, she never intended to write a book about him. At the time Shakespeare went missing, Dorice lived next door and managed his finances. She was telling people Abraham was in Texas, in Jamaica, in Puerto Rico, in Orlando, in a hospital. He was on vacation somewhere. It turned out later that it had been none other than Dorice Moore who gave the postcard to Abraham's cousin. Cedric got really suspicious something was wrong with his relative, and on November 9, 2009, he reported Abraham Shakespeare as a missing person. The detective summoned Dorice Moore for an interrogation. She was supposed to be in contact with Shakespeare, but her twisted explanations, which she kept changing over and over, could drive anyone crazy. Finally, the sheriff's office declared Abraham Shakespeare missing, and Dorice quickly became a suspect in the case. It came to light that Dorice had worked out some tricky schemes and transferred all of Abraham's money to her own business account. Mr. Shakespeare simply couldn't read the documents he signed. Dorice Moore spent money left and right. For instance, she bought herself a Hummer for $90,000, and for her boyfriend, she got a Chevrolet Corvette for $70,000. On December 27th, Dorice invited Abraham's mother, Elizabeth, out to dinner. They were sitting in a restaurant when Elizabeth's phone rang. A man on the other end introduced himself as Abraham. He was doing okay, but he was still tired and still needed to be away from everything and everyone, the man was saying. The voice sounded nothing like Abraham's, but the mother managed to sit through the 8-minute talk. The police found out about the incident soon enough. Here's the man who talked to Elizabeth on the phone. His name is Gregory Smith. He's a barber and an old friend of Abraham. Now he's under arrest. Greg gave a very interesting statement. It was Dee Dee who talked him into portraying Abraham on the phone.
She's crying. I'm like, what's wrong with you? She was like, everybody think I did something to Abraham and this and that. I said, well, listen, did you? No, Abraham's on his way back.
After the interview, the police let Gregory go. He was sure his friend was on vacation somewhere and should be left alone. He left a voice message in Abraham's box asking to call him back. In response, he got a text message. "I'll call you in a little while." Shakespeare never texted. Gregory realized then something was seriously wrong. In January, Dee Dee met up with Greg once more, in his car this time. She came up with a business proposal. Someone had to take the blame for Abraham's death. "I'll pay," the blonde promised. Greg found the right person for the job. They both met Dee Dee in this hotel on January 6th. The one to accept the offer was Mike Smith, a bearded man with long dreadlocks, a drug dealer. He was facing a prison sentence anyway. Why not claim that he had killed the lottery winner? If Dee Dee paid well, his son would have money even with Mike behind bars. "We can do this," Smith agreed, "but like I say, I'm gonna need a body." He also asked for the murder weapon. Dorice was okay with that. She brought a revolver to one of those rendezvous with Greg. And on January 25th, 2010, she showed him a concrete slab near a house she owned in Plant City, Florida. She said that was where the body was buried. Greg asked her to mark the exact location, put a piece of metal on it or something. Without hesitation, Moore indicated the spot. The one to dig the hole with an excavator was Dee Dee's ex-husband. The man believed he was dealing with construction waste. Later, he would say he was digging in the dark at night and never saw anything suspicious. He thought his ex was hiding money. However, at the bottom of this 8-foot deep hole, there was a body, and the police knew about it. Michael Smith, the man who agreed to take responsibility for Shakespeare's murder, never sold any drugs. He was an undercover cop, and he played his role well before Dee Dee. Moreover, the detectives heard all of her conversations with Greg. You see, after the interrogation, the police offered Gregory to cooperate with them, and the man was eager to find his missing friend. He cut the top off a Red Bull can, put a recorder inside, and filled it with styrofoam. He then placed the can on the dashboard as an ashtray to stub out the cigarettes. That's how he got his conversations with Moore recorded. The police set up a perimeter around the backyard and brought in some heavy construction machinery. The excavation lasted for 2 days. Finally, about 8 feet deep, they found a body covered in lime. Dorice Moore thought she'd destroyed the evidence, but it turned out otherwise. The lime preserved the skin on the fingers. Forensic experts identified the victim as Abraham Shakespeare in no time. He had been shot with 2 revolver bullets.
You get tired of people asking you for money all the time, Abe? Give me your opinion on it.
I've been tired a year ago.
You just ready to start living your life, huh?
They don't take no for an ounce or so.
So where do you want to go to?
It don't matter to me. I'm not a picky person.
This very video was the last ace in Moore's sleeve. She'd recorded it just before Abraham went missing, as a proof that the man intended to go away somewhere. But the card played against her. The prosecution believed the woman had intentionally filmed Abraham to provide a cover-up for her future crime. The trial was pure drama. Faces were pulled, tears were shed, and proposals were made to have sex with one of the detectives so that he would drop the charges. None of it worked, and Dee Dee was sentenced to life. She still claims she's innocent. Here in this one interview, Moore says she knows who killed Abraham. Then in tears, she states that she had no idea who could have done this. Dee Dee explained she and Abraham hid the money in that cursed hole and covered it with concrete so that the bills wouldn't get wet. And now that she told the world of such a way to hide money, everyone would do it.
I really honestly haven't met people who bury money in the backyard.
No, you will. After this show, people will come forward. They won't tell you where it's buried, but they're going to tell you, because there's plenty of people out there.
Dorice Moore grew up in poverty, her relatives say. She was obsessed with spending money without rules or limitations. But the game she played to live her dream led Dorice into the darkest corners of human nature. Now, dear viewers, what would you do if you won a jackpot? Do you think you could spot a person like Dee Dee in your surroundings? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and stay safe.